What's interesting to me about space-time now, in an anchor reference point, because we've described the fabric of reality in the cosmos in my opinion, So what's interesting now at reference anchor, when you're comparing how much time has passed so far to where we are now. We'll just say that simply. I don't even want to even bother with the singularity. Let's just imagine that in this mode it doesn't necessarily exist because there's just a flux field forward. And now we have a range of options because so far the factorial set of the emissions are at zero. So it's very much just a bubbly mist ahead of us of what consequentially has happened so far in history from point or from temporal back, because we're thinking time as far back as possible, which means that you still have to induce the entire field, so it's so smooth that it's a continuum because we have this much matter in our giant abacus that we can control in our free ranges of movement. It just takes time and inherent coordination to make that much of an investment for that kind of an opportunistic uh, future. The stuff that was done way back when might be easily reroutable into fantastic options, and we might need to use that field perception of our growing strength and so many different coordinated automations to keep in mind that, when they say that we'll usually only get 10% the speed of light there, that might be a big undersum of how rapidly we can create a foundation, like a actual, think of now like a, what's the one instrument on a piano that has the high pitch resonance when you strike it? I can't believe I forgot that. Well, anyways, once you're hitting that, it's a big plate, and that plate is on both sides of the planet in an energy flux of coordinated impact into the stress or strain of space time as it changes. As we conform and do our decisions, it's making that kind of a change to everything. And we've got that much matter and material and positions around the cosmos that we have intercepted in the system. And because we're understanding buoyancy and we're using volumetric applications of knowledge, then we can better strategize early on great strategies for investments. Inherently, all this digital to real conversions that are happening, the slipstream of coordinated industries making things happen. Sometimes I sense it just right after a thought, and each time some of this stuff material clicks and better harmonizes, then it makes those investments easier to work on. And so the strain map of space time, the strain map is, the 3D space distributed, and that's what sets our buoyancy. And so then we can look for ways of moving the material around, the energy state, such that we end up finding much more of a consequential strategy for improvement where it makes a torque impact towards C7, spherical, recoordination for a maximum velocity of, Snellian multiplexing, OFDM, and having all of that strata just organizing liquid systems or atmospheric systems using radio sets and statics, kind of like the what they used in the nuclear industry for separating all the different isotopic values, the uranium 256 from 255, or all the different subsets that could be laid out depending on the counts of protons and neutrons inside of the atom. Uh, that kind of a strategy is what makes it both a linear accelerator, given its depth of the material, of using a material format of universal processor to redistribute a volume of that strain in a two-dimensional, what they call, what is that? Jet propulsion. The better those avenues are conducted into wind tunnels and flow states and thought of as thrust capable systems, the more we weave these avenues of coordinated AC or atmospheric distribution. So we can go from, Norway's and Denmark's of, at least they're set to pump that much atmospheric process out because of, their savings with their dams. They're going to be set for crafting an atmospheric flow state where you get the air streams that affect and the ability for us to weave energy around that coordinated airstream and a manner that slowly adapts to not over stress or strain the atmospheric conditions. Y'all have to help decide on how fast we try to reformulate to avoid Californian conditions of the wealthy having issues or no wealthy is a significant consequence if we distribute an assembly that is so easy to terra grow, and by maintaining a lock of energy redistribution, it's like a holographic record set where the data itself is energy. Different formulas of storing, different formulas of energy transport. It's like the underground conduits, right? That we're talking about. The cables could be semiconductors and communication lattices, such that they're fiber optic tubes, speed of light or just the heat transfer cycle, and communicating algorithmically what kind of data needs to go through that flow state, and using all of the hydrogens that make the Cooper pairs so wave-like centric to where it just ends up being some nested value over here, scroll some what it's a Bose-Einstein condensate phase lock effect over there. And at that level of superconduction, yeah, it's a Bose-Einstein condensate fluid state, but it's an A-Beck system, the universe itself, and what kind of mapping channels we can build into a density that is at the BEC, limit of insulative property for our little optical maps, right? You saw my drawers, right? You saw the drawers in the 2058 Blade Runner movie. Those things slide out. Those little clear bearings. That's ABEC fluid, right? and that's why it's safe to handle, because there's still that surface phase that just keeps it a particle that's optically, using Euler's law, a contact patch safe surface to handle. But then the environment, in effect, cleans it and maintains its fluid harmony, such that the mapping system of temporal paths can be helpfully distributed into the dramatic effects of the movie. No, I'm not. I'm just kidding about that. But the imagination of the science, though, is appropriate, because it does work, because you're using frequencies of light that bounce back and forth so freaking fast that it's at both the superconduction property and radially active with light. So it's like the best of both worlds. And so then that way you get those kinds of subsets, and those in movement and stuff can also assist with futuristic abilities beyond what science seemed to have crafted in the real set. Maybe the imaginary set might be possible with enough of the stacking effects of these optical properties in with the multiplex and factorial rational of, okay, well, let's see where the limits really are, because that's what localized constants appear to be. Is it's a localized constant because we can only see so far in a field before it's like temporally locked out into these little knots, these balloon farting black wells, right? It's just, it's tight back there and it's all frozen up. And there's just so much leak through that happens with like the Hawking radiation, I suppose, and both dynamos where it's so coupled down to a, what do they call it? The coalescence. Coalescence is the field effect at the very minimum theoretical possible, where it's just one bandwidth coupled to a field. And so that's the knot of throughput that we appear to see in that word I was trying to avoid earlier, singularities. Is it so anyway, by having a better sense of our environment, by stacking out a better note, then we have a frequency of maximum capability where we could go ahead and see ourselves as a growing organism in those kinds of avenues. That's what organisms do, is they make things complicated.